Here's a tip on replacing the coolant connector that looks like a hose between the EGR cooler and the oil cooler. Remove the hot side charge air cooler tube. Disengage the EGR cooler hose from the oil cooler outlet, pushing the hose back onto the EGR cooler to give you more room to work. Then remove the T30 bolts on the outlet cover using an extension and a universal. Remove the cover and the outlet. Slide the EGR cooler hose off. On some trucks, there is less clearance here, and a T30 bit without the socket and a 1/4 inch combination wrench are used to remove these bolts. Use silicone grease will make it easier to assemble the hose onto the tube. Let's talk about the EGR cooler a little bit now. Do you suspect a leaking EGR cooler? At the rear of the EGR cooler there is a V-clamp connecting it to the exhaust pipe. If the EGR cooler is leaking, there is usually a drop of coolant hanging from this clamp. Use a long angle mirror and a flashlight and inspect the bottom of the clamp for moisture. Another tip I can give you is to pressurize the cooling system, raise the back end of the truck, and remove the EGR valve. Look inside and see if it's moist. If it is, the cooler is leaking. Beware, a leaking EGR cooler may result from the root cause of leaking head gaskets, especially if the truck has been modified. Remember, it's a good idea to replace the oil cooler with the EGR cooler. On the first video, we talked about the 06 E17 recall, which affects all 2003 and early 2004 F models. This calibration level changes dramatically how the fuel control system works. This calibration can make the PCM very sensitive to intake and exhaust manifold leaks. It is common to set fault codes for an exhaust leak so small that it cannot be heard. Take a 2-foot piece of 1/4 inch brake line and put a 90-degree bend near the end of it. Attach this to the hose on your mechanic's stethoscope and run it along the exhaust pipes while the engine is idling. Exhaust leaks will give you a very distinct pitch change when the tip of the brake line is near them. Beware that large exhaust leaks will make your ears hurt. For you scope guys, here's a few known good waveforms taken with a picoscope. This is a known good cam and crank sensor relationship waveform showing the relationship between the two with the engine idling. The CKP is on pin 30, the CMP is on pin 31 with the grounds on the battery negative. What's unique is that the pins on both are labeled positive on the schematic. The CMP has an initial upward sweep as you'd expect it. Strangely, with the CKP probe on the positive pin, it shows a negative initial sweep of the waveform. Pay attention to the direction of the initial sweep in the waveform, as the engine will barely run if the polarity of the sensor is reversed. Here's the same waveform slowed down to show the relationship cranking. Note on both the cranking and running waveforms there are about 14 teeth between the CKP